Hey everyone, welcome back to the Fantasy Pros Football Podcast for Overreaction Monday. I'm Bobby Sylvester, back with Mike Tagliere after he did a show with Fantasy Pros analyst Dan Harris last night. Tag's awesome show. Dude, I loved hearing you and Dan break it down, man.
It was a fun show. It was different because it's been a while since I had done a Sunday night show, but it was fun, man. Everything was clear, fresh in the mind. There were obviously some things that I was able to look over since that show, and we'll continue to talk about as the week goes on, but I wish we could have just erased how I felt after the show.
Yes. Yeah, we're going to get to that in just a minute, man. Because for those of you who don't know, Tags was sick to his stomach with Aaron Rodgers coming back. He's a big Bears fan, and that was pretty rough. It was fun for the rest of us, but pretty rough for Tags. So for those of you listening at home, I'm going to give you a little behind the scenes here. When they first asked me if I wanted to try hosting a podcast, I don't know what it was, 2 years ago, maybe 2.5 years ago. I was like, yeah, I'll try it, of course, but it's probably going to be a disaster. And it was a disaster, like even more than I was thinking. I have no idea why they kept trying to make me do it. But it's gotten a lot better over time. I bring this all up to say Dan stepping into that Sunday night role, it's a serious, serious challenge, and he did amazing. He did lie to you guys about something, though. Tags, I bet you remember, Dan said he was slightly better looking than me. I mean, we don't even know what he looks like.
That's
For all
correct.
we know, he could be like Scooby-Doo or something. Plus, Dan doesn't even have a world record as far as I know. So just wanted to clear that up.
Yeah, it's pretty obvious that Bobby's the more handsome one because he hasn't hid his face from the public like Dan has. So, Dan, I think you need to show a picture if you want this disputed.
There we go. All right. By the way, Tags and I are on Twitter, at BobbyFantasyPro and at Mike Tagliere NFL. And today and every Monday evening this season, we're going to be breaking down the waiver wire landscape and, of course, talking about injuries and the fallouts. Before we get to that, though, I started a new series this week about the biggest takeaways from my Monday morning film session. So as you all know, I've been hyping up NFL Game Pass on here. They've got these condensed games where you can literally watch every Sunday game in 3 or 4 hours. So that's how I start my week, is seeing every single NFL play from the day before, which is just amazing. I can't believe I live this life, right, Tags?
Oh, yeah. No, I have multiple screens. Fortunately, I have like 6 screens down in my basement where I'm able to watch a lot of the stuff that's going on. But I had to go back and watch a few things. Like I went back and watched Josh Doxson to see if Patrick Peterson was shadowing today because I didn't get to watch much of that game. And it appeared that Patrick Peterson was, in fact, moving around with him on the field most of the time.
You were wrong, dude. You lied to me.
Yeah, no, it was upsetting. Well, it's more like the Cardinals lied to me because they said that Patrick Peterson wasn't going to shadow, but he was definitely moving back side to side. So it's difficult to predict that kind of stuff, but that's what Game Pass does. It allows you to watch it.
That's right. They've got this really handy search bar, too, besides the condensed games, where you can see every play from any player you want. So if you wanted to see if Kenny Stills is actually awesome, or if he just happened to have the safety cleared out on his way to an easy touchdown, you can quickly go back and see that. By the way, it turns out that he's not actually awesome. I would sell high on Kenny Stills, and you can read about that in the article. Game Pass is just a blast, guys. It's extremely helpful, and if you want to check it out, we've got a free trial for you. If you want 7 days free, go to NFL.com/fantasypros to claim the offer. So Tags, as I mentioned, your heart was torn out over the Aaron Rodgers game. And although some of the listeners would love to hear you cry about it for like 30 minutes, we don't have time. And frankly, I think you've suffered enough. So instead, I want to make you feel a little bit better. Our bet is already over, dude. I lost. Joe Mixon is going to get 10,000 touches this year. Christian McCaffrey is going to get like 250. Andy's nowhere near as good. I lost. I already started ordering adult diapers.
Well, I appreciate you. I'm sure you're not conceding. You're going to let this thing play out. But, I mean, Mixon had a great matchup in week 1. Christian McCaffrey's matchup wasn't as good. But I think that we started to see signs that Christian McCaffrey might have to go back to his role that he played last year.
Same role. No goal line. Jonathan Stewart's there. I mean, Greg Olsen's hurt now, but...
That's exactly why. Greg Olsen getting hurt is the biggest story here because he's going to have to play a bigger role in the passing game. They're going to use him in the slot, which means C.J. Anderson is going to move into that Jonathan Stewart role, which garnered 198 carries last year. So Christian McCaffrey, and I think that's better for the Panthers, to be honest with you, because I always felt like when they signed Anderson, it was like the best move they could have done because I think Anderson's a better first and second down back than Christian McCaffrey.
Yeah, he's a good one. He's a good one for sure. I just believe them, man. I bought into it that he's going to get, 350 touches. He's a workhorse now. But really, this is more about Joe Mixon. Like, if you go back and watch Joe Mixon, I say this without hesitation. actually, which is kind of weird because I just hesitated, but I actually mean this, no hyperbole. He is the best pass-catching running back in the NFL. Sorry, not sorry, Alvin Kamara, Le'Veon Bell, Duke Johnson, all these guys. It's Joe Mixon. He's so smooth. He's so good in the run, too. I just wish he was in a better offense.
Yeah, no, I agree. And that's the thing, is that's all I was standing for this offseason was that Joe Mixon is extremely talented, and I have no idea how people miss that. But situations in fantasy football absolutely matter, as we saw with Ezekiel Elliott and David Johnson this weekend.
You know, he's big, too. Like, he's not quite Steven Jackson, but he looks like he's not a running back out there. He's just a big old man. All right, Tags, let's move on over to the injuries. And this is a reminder for both of us because we both need it. This is a waiver wire show. Say it with me. I will not talk about injuries for half an hour. We will move through this as fast as possible while still giving sufficient information. Can we do this, man?
Yeah, absolutely.
It's going to be really tough. Tags and I were talking before the show, like, I don't know how we're going to keep this under 5 hours, and I should probably stop making comments like that so we can keep going. Tags, let's talk about Aaron Rodgers, man. Obviously, we don't need to rehash what happened last night. Everybody saw it. But Aaron Rodgers is hurt. Is he going to play in week 2? Does this really concern you?
It does concern me. I think that him coming back to that game was more of like a thing. I think that the Bears' possession after halftime was like the determining factor in whether or not he came back into that game. Because if the Bears had scored and then they went up even more, I don't think Aaron Rodgers would have played.
We're not gone 3 and out every single time except once.
And that's what I'm saying is just like I really believe he gutted out that game. It was a home game. It was the opener. And he may have done more harm than good because, I mean, it was ridiculous watching him do what he did with no mobility. I mean, you saw him out there. As someone said, I was watching the game with my brother-in-law, and he said it was like Forrest Gump when he had the braces on his legs before that when he was a kid. That's what Aaron Rodgers looked like when he was dropping back to pass, keeping that leg straight. It obviously affected him. They're saying it's swollen today. They don't know the status. I wouldn't put him out there against the Minnesota defense personally. I think they're going to take a loss this week.
Yeah, I think so too, man. I don't think they will do that. I think he's going to go out there and play, but I wouldn't feel comfortable starting Aaron Rodgers, which I've never said before. I would bench Aaron Rodgers and pick up a streamer.
Oh, against the Vikings. I mean, that's really tough to say. I don't know if I want to say bench Aaron Rodgers, but it's definitely...
Isn't that weird?
It is weird to say, and I don't like saying it. The game's in Green Bay. It's not in Minnesota. Minnesota's better at home, but it is a nasty defense, and that's what makes me feel like they should just rest Rodgers because the defense... This is the same defense, by the way, that hurt him last year, the Vikings.
You're right. I mean, but think about this. Minnesota, on average, they give up 65% of the projected fantasy points, like your average fantasy points to a quarterback. So if you get Aaron Rodgers out there averaging 21 fantasy points per game, he's averaging less than 14 against the Vikings, and he's hurt. I'm not doing that, man. I think I can find a streamer who's going to get 15 or more points.
Well, we're going to talk about those streamers.
Yep, we definitely are. Okay, more injury guys. Marcus Mariota, man. I mean, he couldn't feel his elbow. That's awfully concerning.
Yeah, it definitely is. And honestly, he was bad before then. He looked like the same quarterback he was last year. And like Marcus Mariota, like I've been hearing from some people out of Tennessee saying he might not be the guy there. Like the more that they watch him, the more that they're kind of convinced that Tennessee might need to start looking at a different quarterback because, one, he's not durable, and two, he hasn't been a good passer. If he's not using his legs, he's not going to be a very dangerous quarterback. And it's tough to argue that point right now, to be honest with you. And it's not to say Blaine Gabbert's any better. That's definitely not going to work. But this is it's definitely not a good thing for the entire offense, man.
Yeah, I think it's a kind of similar situation to what the Jags have with Bortles. They draft him in the top 5. Yeah, they're going to win some games with Mariota. He's going to have some flashes. I mean, Mariota's a better passer than Blake Bortles, but yeah, I agree. I'm not so sure he's the franchise guy. So Delanie Walker is also out. This whole Tennessee offense is falling apart. He is out for the season. So that means Jonnu Smith, and I went back and watched him, 2017. The guy is a freak of nature athlete. I compared him to Dallas Clark. You remember him, top 12 tight end, 5 straight years, top 5, 3 years running. I mean, granted, that was with Peyton Manning, but Jonnu Smith, I think the guy's going to get it done. I've got him as a fringe tight end 1 the rest of the season.
I mean, I wouldn't put him in that conversation, especially not knowing the quarterback situation there. Left tackle Taylor Lewan was also hurt in that game. So there's a lot of issues with this offense, especially if they have to go forward with Blaine Gabbert and Marcus Mariota can't play. They're still doing tests, so we tried to wait as long as we could for this episode to record to see if we could get some more news on Mariota, and unfortunately there's not any. So I have to go forward thinking that it's Blaine Gabbert's team, and that's not something I want to attach myself to. So if you have Corey Davis, it's not the ideal situation.
Sell him to me. I'll take him.
There you go. There's going to be. I mean, that's the thing. I like Corey Davis's talent, but I don't like Blaine Gabbert.
I don't love Blaine Gabbert either, but like, how much worse is he than what Mariota gave last season?
I guess that's probably a good point.
All right, man. Moving on. Greg Olsen. Oh man, same old foot. I moved him down on my rest of the season rankings to tight end 12. I drafted him at like tight end 6. This is just a disaster. We should have known better. You did.
I don't know if I would say that I knew better about his foot and that it would come back and haunt him and maybe end his season, because the more I'm hearing about this Greg Olsen situation, the more that they're bracing for a long absence. And it's apparently the foot that he had repaired before, so it's not a good situation. And it wasn't a good situation to draft him either. After I looked at it, I did a player profile on him, and I kind of examined the entire situation. And if Christian McCaffrey was going to see 100 targets, then Greg Olsen was never going to live up to the hype that people were drafting him as, as like a top 6 tight end. So I ended up dropping him in my rankings before the season, I think, to tight end 10. So I was lower on him than usual, but man, this sucks for Greg Olsen, the player. I mean, I know he thought about hanging him up before the season started, and I wonder if he's having those same thoughts right now.
Yeah, I don't know, man. I expect him to come back, but like if I own Greg Olsen, sure, I'm going to wait for the news to come out on how long this is going to be, but it does not look promising. I'm not going to hang on to him. People made that mistake last year. I think it's the same kind of thing. We're going to talk about some guys you can pick up. I mean, obviously, if George Kittle is out there, I think you rush and pick him up because he got so much work last night. I think it's going to be more and more all season. I wouldn't be surprised at all if he's a superstar, kind of in the way we thought Hunter Henry was going to be, because Jimmy G just loves the tight ends that much, and he's not going to struggle every week. Jimmy G's a good quarterback.
Yeah, no, he is, and that was a tough matchup. It was never going to be a good matchup. I had him ranked as my QB 23 this week, so I didn't like him, but I think he's going to be fine. I think Jimmy G's a good quarterback. I really do, and I think that overreacting to a 3-interception game is not the smartest thing you've ever done. When he's playing the Vikings, they were playing from behind. He's forced to make some throws. Marquise Goodwin got hurt. That was his number 1 target in the offense, so there was a lot of things that went wrong in that game.
Let's talk about Goodwin. Is he? I mean, I know he came back later in that game, but is he good to roll in week 2?
Apparently, he returned to the game, but then he left again, so I don't know what's going on. But if he's not 100%, he was never like a wide receiver that you wanted to trust in terms of a number 1 in an offense anyways. So to know that he might not be 100%, it lowers him down my board. And I think, honestly, like I was actually watching that game quite a bit. Dante Pettis, man.
Dante Pettis.
That kid can run routes. I'll tell you what, like I was watching him against NFL cornerbacks, and that's the thing, is like now they're on the pro level and you're starting to see these things. He can run routes, and that kid can get open. So I don't know what they're going to do. I don't know if, like, because Trent Taylor is very non-versatile. Like, he can only play the slot. He's kind of like a Danny Amendola type player. So is it Pettis taking the place of Goodwin on the perimeter? Because I would love to see Pettis play both positions. I think Pierre Garçon can play both of them, and that's why I thought Pettis should have been starting and him and Garçon rotating out of the slot. But Pettis might have to play more just because, so I think he should remain on your waiver wire like mine. I don't know if he needs to be picked up right now because we don't know what's going on with Goodwin, but it's definitely something that you want to pay attention to.
I mean, he's only 1% owned. Even if he has a big week next week, like, you can pick him up then. He's going to be, 5% owned? So
yeah, he's one of those players that's probably going to pop up in my article this week, where I did an article. It was called Sunday Morning Stashes, which we might change.
Loved that article, man. Such a good idea.
Yeah, we might change it to Saturday morning ones. So the idea is to look ahead to the next week and find the players who are going to be wanted, like people who are going to want to add for that particular week. Like Ben Watson is playing the Browns this week. If you had read that article, you'd already have him on your roster instead of trying to bid FAAB bucks for him as a streamer. So Dante Pettis might wind up in that article this week.
Something else I like to do with those, early stashes is I like to stash a second defense. And it seems weird to have 2 defenses on your team, especially since I'm the guy saying don't draft a defense. But when you get to a certain point in the season and you have guys that you can drop, I like to have that second defense because somebody's going to be going up against Nathan Peterman and Josh Allen. And if you can get them early instead of spending 15 FAAB bucks, over the course of a season, you're going to save a ton of FAAB bucks.
Yeah, I mean, I have no issue with that if you have deeper rosters, but it's tough dropping someone who's got potential. Like, let's say you had Mike Williams on your bench and you dropped him for a second defense. Like, now you feel really bad about that.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely agree with that. Okay, man, Leonard Fournette, the hammy, he is just made of glass.
Oh, you know what? I'm so mad about this, too, because it's so fun watching him play football. Like, I mean, there's not many players in the league who are more fun to watch for me than Leonard Fournette. And, like, honestly, I was watching that game and I said to myself, like, I'm not a small guy, but he's like someone that I was sitting there watching. I'm like, he's a guy I would literally never want to get in front of to tackle. Like, you don't ever want that coming at you. Like, he's just that player, and it sucks to see him nicked up again. They're saying that it's a minor hamstring injury, but I don't think there's a such thing. I think it's your hamstring injury, and it's going to be a soft tissue thing where if you don't take your time getting back, it's going to be re-aggravated, and then you're going to be back at square one. So
you either sit out 3 weeks or this is going to linger the entire season. They better sit him out 3 weeks. And with that said, I mean, DJ Yeldon, we're going to talk about it in a minute. He's probably the number one waiver wire pickup.
Absolutely.
All right, man. Doug Baldwin.
Doug Baldwin, actually, news just came out. The reporting that Doug Baldwin has a grade 2 partial MCL tear per source. Now, this is similar.
Different knee, by the way.
Yeah, it is a different knee. So for those of you saying, oh, Mike, you should have known this. He had a knee injury in preseason. You said to draft him anyways. I can't predict that his other knee is going to get a tear. That's something I can't do, guys. So
come on, man. Got to get better.
Obviously. No, when I no. What's funny is, like, when the whole thing happened and when he left the game, I was like, I'm going to get so much crap for this. But the thing is, I own Doug Baldwin as my wide receiver 1 in a lot of different leagues. So it affects me. It sucks. It really does. And to know that we didn't even get a good game out of him, it wasn't a good matchup by any means. But this is essentially a grade 2 strain is considered a tear. So they're saying tear. It sounds worse than it is. It's a grade 2 strain. I would anticipate him missing 2 to 3 weeks. That's where I'm at with it. It's the same thing that Jay Cutler suffered during that NFC Championship game, because so many people were like, he has a strain, and then there was some people being like, no, he had a tear. It's the same thing. So I do expect him. I don't think he's going to be placed on short-term IR or anything like that. I expect him to be back, considering how bad the Seahawks do need him.
You know, yesterday was really fun, but I was also super mad yesterday because in my big league, I've got Leonard Fournette, Doug Baldwin, Aaron Rodgers, right? And when Aaron Rodgers went down, I was like, I quit fantasy football forever. Dan Harris is going to have to take my job. And then he came back and won the game, and I was feeling a lot better. And then I woke up and realized I get to watch football for 3 hours, so I'm pretty pumped.
Yeah, no, for sure.
All right, next, Deshaun Jackson had the really big game, but he's also hurt now. I think a lot of people are going to rush to pick him up. I'm not as excited.
I don't know how to feel about this one, man. You're right. A lot of people are going to go to pick him up, but...
Do you ever feel comfortable starting him?
No. And that's why I was talking on the show last night, Bobby, that we recorded, as I said that Deshaun Jackson was someone I was getting in so many best ball leagues, and I was like, I thought that there was something wrong with me, because I would be getting him as the 60th or 70th wide receiver off the board, and I was like... Is there something wrong with Deshaun Jackson I don't know about? Because it seems like this is the perfect format. You never know when he's going to go off. And to think that he did it with Ryan Fitzpatrick is crazy. But Ryan Fitzpatrick, I was dying laughing when I saw the first.
It's not crazy, man. Fitz has those games in him. It happens. I mean, not 50-point games, but...
Right. Well, I mean, if you go back to the Jets in, 2015, like, Ryan Fitzpatrick had a year where he was like one of the better streamers in football. So, I mean, Deshaun Jackson, I just laughed at the first touchdown because Ryan Fitzpatrick literally threw everything he had in his entire body into the ball. And like, he actually, I mean, the ball was right on target. Deshaun Jackson ran under it. It was perfect, man. But
that's why he grew out the big beard, is so that he could get that extra oomph.
What's funny, though, Bobby, is that my wife, she actually benched Deshaun Jackson in our home league yesterday for Bruce Ellington, because she tuned in to the live stream that we had on Sunday morning. And I said that Bruce Ellington was a good sleeper play where it's like, yeah, and he turned out to score a touchdown, so it worked out. But still, she's not happy with me about the whole Deshaun Jackson thing.
Yeah, man, that is pretty rough. All right, let's move on to the final guy here. Kenneth Dixon, another one people were going to be excited about picking up, but he's going to be out a few weeks now.
Yeah, it's not great. Apparently news came out that he tweaked his knee late in the game, and they're expecting him to miss a couple weeks, which is good for Alex Collins, because Alex Collins got benched for a fumble. Yeah. This is ugly, man. I was actually going to say, if you have Alex Collins, wait until he has a good game, and then I'd sell, because he's obviously going to be on somewhat of a short leash with the fumble issues. And we actually talked about that on the show last night, and I gave credit to you saying that you've been saying it all off season, that Alex Collins had fumble issues at the start of last year, and that's why they were always hesitant to use him in like a workhorse role. So to know that he fumbled in that game, it's like, that's some scary stuff. But if Kenneth Dixon is shelved, they don't have any other options.
You know, I don't think Kenneth Dixon's really special anyway. I thought he was going to be, but he doesn't look the same since his injury. So I'm not really super worried about him. I'm not super worried about Buck Allen. Like, Buck Allen's role is going to increase. He's a decent flex play, especially in PPR leagues. But I think this is Alex Collins' job. He's gonna fumble here and there. He's gonna get benched every once in a while because of it. But I'm not too worried.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing is, like I said, with Kenneth Dixon being shelved for a little bit, I'm okay with Alex Collins.
So since I'm already really sad about all these injuries, Tags, let's just keep the train rolling. I lost in cash games yesterday on DFS on FanDuel. I was in the 11% who actually faded Alvin Kamara. I'll take James Conner here. I'll take Leonard Fournette. And I'll take David Johnson since Alvin Kamara might only get 8 carries. Oh, wait. Alvin Kamara can score 36 points with just 8 carries? You know what, though? I had a blast. Because watching football is really fun, but FanDuel just multiplies the fun. I'm definitely going to win next week. And I've already started building entries for the Sunday Million contest they have set up for week 2, where $3.5 million in prizes are going to be given away, including $1 million to yours truly when I win first place with Alvin Kamara this time, even if he only gets 6 carries. I don't care. I'm rostery. I'm not doing that again, Tags. The entry fee is just $15 if you want to enter the Sunday Million. If you're a crack at $1 million, I'll see you there. Except, Tags, you're not invited. You're just too good, dude.
Well, yeah, no, I was going to say my cash lineup did really good. I think it could have cashed in tournaments yesterday, actually. It was I had actually 2 lineups. I usually don't do that, but I did 2 lineups yesterday, and Kamara was in one of them. And then the other one, I had Connor in both of them, so that was nice.
Yeah, well, everybody had Connors. You're not special there. What else did you do right? Like, obviously, Michael Thomas, AJ Green.
I had Michael Thomas everywhere. Michael Thomas, I actually moved him up before the game started. I moved him up to my number 1 wide receiver for the week.
Oh, good for you, dude.
And honestly, that's what I like about DFS is like when I'm going through and creating my lineups, like that's how I feel. Like where if I'm like, if there's a guy that I feel the need to put in every single one of my lineups, like he needs to be high on my list. And knowing that Antonio Brown was dealing with some weather, knowing that DeAndre Hopkins was against New England, who typically takes away the number 1 threat, there were just some things that I liked about Michael Thomas, and I wanted him in every single lineup. So to see him go off, it doesn't surprise me, man.
I had Green number 1, Thomas number 2. So I was with you there, man, but I kind of blew it on quarterback. So I'm not so sure my accuracy ranking was going to be great this week.
Oh, I had Breeze. Like I said, when I play Michael Thomas, I'm like, this Tampa Bay secondary has nothing to offer to stop Drew Brees. And the game script was obviously ideal. I didn't think that Drew Brees was going to throw the ball as much as he did, but that obviously helped my lineups as well.
All right, dude, let's finally get into the waiver wire here. And I just want to start this at the top. We got to talk about TJ Yeldon, right? How much would you spend on him in terms of FAAB?
I think it's a situation where if you own Leonard Fournette, you should be spending more. I would honestly feel comfortable if Fournette's going to miss like 2 or 3 weeks. That's
25.
Yeah, I would say about there.
Mm-hmm. I'm about 15 if you don't own Fournette because he's an RB2.
The thing is we've talked about in the show, and I know, Bobby, you've listened to me say it over and over, is that TJ Yeldon, I don't know why he wasn't being drafted around guys like Tariq Cohen and Chris Thompson. I know Chris Thompson had a great game yesterday, but still, he was going to be involved in the passing game regardless, and he was one of the best handcuffs to a guy that was dealing with some chronic ankle injuries, and now he's got a hamstring injury. So, even when Leonard Fournette comes back, if his hamstring's okay, his ankle still has chronic issues. So TJ Yeldon should always be owned. Fortunately, I don't have to spend the money in my leagues because he was on the end of my bench. But yeah, if you own Fournette, I think he's well worth 25% of your budget just to make sure you lock up that backfield. And if you don't own Fournette, I might go up to 20% depending on your league, depending on your running back situation. Like if you played the whole 0 running back game, you kind of have to spend money on players like this.
For me, I said $12, $15. It would really depend. Is Yeldon actually going to play for me? Like if I've got James Conner, which I do in 90% of my leagues, actually maybe 100%. I think I have him in every single league, Tags. Because I drafted him before this whole thing happened, just in case something like this happened. But if I've got 3 running backs I'm starting ahead of Yeldon, I don't want to spend a dime on Yeldon. I'm not putting a bid in, and the reason why is there's going to come a point in the season, whether it's John Kelly replacing an injured Todd Gurley, or whoever it may be, Rod Smith replacing Zeke, one of these guys is going to come up. I don't want to be spending 5, 10, 15, 20 $5 here and there, and then I don't have any chance at the one guy who's going to win you a championship, and it's not Yeldon.
Yeah, that's the thing. I think you're right in the terms of if you don't need them, but if you play in a league where it's not even a FAAB budget and you're just let's say you have the number 1 waiver wire position.
Bingo, yeah.
Take a look at the guy who owns Leonard Fournette and talk to him. I would talk to him before the waiver wires even go through and say, hey, I'm going to grab Yeldon. What will you give me for him? And kind of work that way. I totally play the game because that is part of the game.
You might be able to get a Corey Davis.
That's what I'm saying is if you can get if they're panicked about this hamstring and they're like, oh my God, and it's going to take some time. They're panicked and they're willing to give you someone maybe like a Chris Hogan. Maybe he's just this guy sucks. I'm going to give him away. Maybe they do that. I don't know how far this will go in certain leagues, but I guarantee you there are some Fournette owners out there really panicked and they're going to be willing to overspend for TJ Yeldon.
So TJ Yeldon right now is available in 89% of leagues, so you check him out. Obviously, there's going to be some of you listening to the show where there's like way better guys out there. I doubt James Conner is still there, but I can't really think of an example, Tags. You know how it is. Like, you can look at our rest of the season rankings and you can see, oh, they've got this guy in the top 100 and yet he's available in my league. And it really helps out, by the way, if you use My Playbook, which is free. All you have to do is go to the homepage, click on My Playbook, upload your team. It takes like 5 seconds. It's going to tell you who the best guys available in your league are in terms of rest of the season rankings, so you don't miss that out. It applies to all of the leagues because we're only going to be talking about guys who are less than 45% owned today, Tags.
Yeah, no, for sure. And by the way, I wanted to mention my whole Sunday morning waiver wire stashes. TJ Yeldon was in it.
Ooh. Who else did you have?
I had Jordan Wilkins in there. I had Ty Montgomery in there. Both those guys were flex plays. They were fine. I had Geronimo Allison. I also had Anthony Miller and Josh Doxson, so that's not great. However, their matchups this week might turn that around. And that's the idea, right? Is that I'm looking forward to the week 2 matchups where these guys might turn into more than you thought.
Forget Josh Doxson. Never again. I ranked him in my top like 35 and he sucked.
No, I understand that. But his matchup this week against the Colts is it's like make or break time. If he doesn't do it here, then yeah, he's definitely droppable.
Speaking of which, Nick Vannett, dude. That was not cool because he was supposed to be the dude, and then Russell Wilson's thrown to whatever his name is, that backup. I mean, I'm sure we've got to talk about him.
Will Dissly.
Will Dissly, yeah.
Yeah, and so many people are like, Mike, who the hell is Will Dissly and what happened to Nick Vannett? And so this is like one of those mirages, right, where it's like people are going to think that Will Dissly is all of a sudden like the guy. He's not. Like, Nick Vannett actually played, he ran more pass routes than him. It's just the way that things fell. I had the process right about the Denver, playing a tight end against Denver. I just had the wrong one, obviously. But Dissly was drafted by them this year. He's a rookie tight end who's in the 4th round. He wasn't expected to go in until the 6th or the 7th round. He's 6'4", 265 pounds, so he's a bigger dude.
He's a block first guy, and he just happened to get open on a couple catches.
They drafted him to be basically an extra offensive lineman. Like I'm telling, don't pick up Will Dissly.
You remember when Ed Dickson went off for 150 receiving yards and a touchdown, and everyone got really excited about Ed Dickson. I was just like, are you serious? Like, it's Ed Dickson, people. And then he was never good again, and he's still not good.
Yeah, no, for sure. And that's the thing. I mean, Nick Vannett, unfortunately, it's not going to be like, I don't know if he's worthy of rostering right now, but at the same time, I do believe he's still the top tight end there.
Who's your number 2 guy in waivers that's owned in less than 50% of leagues? Because again, I want to remind you all, these are not the best guys available in your league. There is going to be somebody who slips through the cracks, like Devontae Parker maybe. I would definitely pick him up over my number 2 guy here.
Yeah, so I just want to be clear about this too, because I've had some people on Twitter say, can you guys do a waiver wire on like players that aren't owned in most leagues? Like, because my league, a lot of these guys are owned. Well, when we're talking about TJ Yeldon being owned in 11% of leagues, that means 90 or 89% of leagues don't have him owned. So we're talking to the majority here. We try and keep this below 40%. And obviously, the deeper we can go, the better. But it's very rare to find players who are 1% owned that are going to blow up and like make every week fantasy impact. So,
like Randall Cobb's available in 32% of leagues. You don't need me to tell you to go pick up Randall Cobb. If he's available in your league, do it, guys.
Correct. And we're going to get through some of the players that are in the single digit owned, but working our way through here, 20% owned is John Brown. He's my number 2. Looking at the game script against the Bills last week, I don't think we expected Joe Flacco to throw 3 touchdowns. So the Bills secondary is like considered to be their strong point. Their front 7 is like mediocre. Obviously their offense is a joke, but their secondary is supposed to be good. So to see John Brown, to see Michael Crabtree, Willie Snead all get into the end zone last week, it's promising for the passing game. And even though Michael Crabtree is like the prototypical red zone wide receiver, and he's going to be, John Brown is going to have some really big weeks, guys. To know that he scored a short touchdown in both the preseason week 3 and week 1, it was just a short target. That's actually beneficial to him. So I think John Brown is a must add at this point. He should be owned in every single league. I'm not saying you have to start him every week, but he definitely should be owned.
He's not like a number 1 waiver wire priority pickup guy, but yeah, I've got my 2 through 4. I've got it $8, $8, and $9. If you're one of the people who spends on FAAB, not me, I'll try to pick up all these guys for 0 or 1 FAAB, depending on my league settings. And if I get one, great. If I don't get one, whatever. In fact, I own most of them. But I've got John Brown number 4 just behind the other 2 receivers. And I agree with you. I think that he is going to be the number 1 option as long as he's healthy. And let's keep our fingers crossed that he stays healthy. But John Brown is really good. He's always been really good. He's always been really efficient. He just needs to stay healthy.
Yep, and he's healthy now.
And remember, Joe Flacco leads the NFL in pass attempts over the past 2 seasons.
Wasn't it like, if you actually, 2 of the last 3 seasons, I want to say he's led the NFL in attempts, or he was over 600.
I'm saying if you combine the last 2 seasons, he's the only guy with like 1,180.
I think you can go back the last 3 seasons, and I think he would still lead the league in attempts. So, I mean, knowing he has more weapons than usual, knowing that the backfield is now missing Kenneth Dixon, I think they might be throwing more. And the thing is, Joe Flacco has looked really good. I mean, as much as you want to like make fun of him and say that he's not elite, I get that. I'm right there with you, but I'm also not going to pretend that Joe Flacco hasn't looked fantastic this year.
Yeah, I mean, is he this year's Alex Smith? Because if it's anybody, it would be him, right?
I don't think it is. Like, I don't think that Joe Flacco has that much skill in him. Like, I think he's obviously talented to play on an NFL quarterback, but he doesn't have the mobility that Alex Smith does. He doesn't have the accuracy that Alex Smith does. He doesn't have like the game manager even awareness, I don't think, to his game. I don't think that's part of what Joe Flacco does, but to know that he threw 3 touchdowns is impressive.
By the way, I'm calling it right now. I know this is a bold prediction, but you know what? We need some bold predictions in the waiver wire show. Otherwise, it might get dull. Alex Smith is going to compete for the MVP this year. He is so good. When I was watching that game film on Washington, he was just unbelievable. Like, he wasn't Aaron Rodgers, but the dude is elite.
Yeah, I continue to say that Alex Smith is underrated, and I think that if forced into a role where he needs to throw more, I think he can do that. And I think you saw it last year. And like in week 1, he didn't need to throw a whole bunch. Throwing 2 touchdowns against Arizona was impressive in Arizona in his first game. But now it's like they're returning back home. Washington is going to be they're playing the Colts. So meanwhile, Adrian Peterson should go off. It's a plus matchup for Alex Smith. So I always enjoy watching him play.
By the way, how good is Adrian Peterson, man? Like, he's not back to being the best running back in football, but if he stays healthy for 16 games, I would expect him to be a top 12 running back.
No, I'm going to rank him as an RB1 this week against the Colts. That's going to happen. The Colts...
playing him everywhere in DFS.
Yeah, the stats that I came up with on him, like I said, I started working on the primer already. But the Colts' entire line, their starting linebackers have played a combined 220 snaps in the NFL. So to know they're going against Peterson and this dominant Washington offensive line, this is going to be nasty. Adrian Peterson, I'm looking to trade him after a hot start though, because I do think he'll wear down with his age. It's just, you can't help it, man. Like that's how it happens with running backs. So I would look to sell high, but I don't know. I need to look forward with the schedule, but I do think he's going to wear down as the year goes on. They're going to rely on Alex Smith a lot more.
I've got this block in my mind, Tags, where every time I think about Alex Smith, I see him in a San Francisco 49ers uniform, and I can't shake that. I don't know why that happens. My number 2, I'm curious to hear where you have him, is Ryan Grant, because I know you watched the game. He had 8 receptions, 9 targets. He was getting open. He was getting separation, and Andrew Luck looked really good. T.Y. Hilton, I don't care what you say. I think he's an average wide receiver. He was without Luck last year. Luck has turned him into a top 20 fantasy receiver 2 out of 6 years. So, yeah, he's been decent. But I wouldn't be surprised at all if Ryan Grant is the number 1 in Andrew Luck's offense. He got so many targets yesterday, and I'm a believer in his talent, man. He's quick. He separates.
He might be the number 1 just because of what Andrew Luck's doing right now. Like, if you watch, and I did watch that whole entire game, like that one was like glued on my TV.
It's a different offense with Frank Reich, right?
Yeah, it is a different offense, and the way that they were using Ryan Grant was weird. I expected something a little bit different because he caught a lot of passes over the middle of the field, but Andrew Luck is not taking shots downfield. Like, and I don't know if it's his arm. I don't know if it was the game plan.
His arm looked good on the Eric Ebron pass. I don't think it was his arm.
I know it didn't. Like, he made a few questionable decisions in that game. Like, Luck didn't look perfect. There was one that was intercepted. There was another, maybe 2 passes that I would say that should have been intercepted. But Ryan Grant, they're having him play this like possession style role. And T.Y. Hilton, the reason that I think Ryan Grant can be the number 1 receiver. So T.Y. Hilton, the last time that Andrew Luck played in 2016, T.Y. Hilton played out of the slot that year 54% of the time. Okay. His total in week 1, it was down under 25%. That's going to kill his production because if Andrew Luck can't get the ball outside the numbers, if he can't throw the ball down the field, like consistently, T.Y. Hilton's going to struggle getting separation, and those slot targets are worth a lot. So they have Chester Rodgers playing the slot almost exclusively. I think he played 85% of the snaps from there. So Ryan Grant, they're playing him underneath, and if that's where Andrew Luck's going to throw, that he's definitely worth it. I have him as my number 6 overall, but I could see the argument to move him up to number 4.
So you're telling me you think Joe Flacco's better than Andrew Luck?
I'm not going to say better. I'm not going to say better, but I'm not going to say that, but I'm talking about the opportunity though, like in terms of like John Brown matching up with Joe Flacco's skill set.
Oh, I was just messing with you, man. You don't need to explain it.
John Brown is also much more talented than Ryan Grant.
I think so too. I definitely think he's more talented. I think that they're both maybe number one receivers. I think Flacco throws the ball as much as Luck this year. So yeah, it's like I said, I've got them at $9 and $8 for FAAB. Okay, I'll get to my next guy in a second that I have right behind Ryan Grant. But first I want to talk about one of the sponsors of today's show, RX Bar. And RX Bar wants to build things the right way. RX Bar believes in the power of transparency and lets the core ingredients do all the talking with all of them listed on the front of the packaging. You'll likely recognize RX Bar at the shelf. They're the ones that have egg whites for protein, dates to bind, nuts for texture, and other delicious ingredients like unsweetened chocolate, real fruit, and spices like sea salt or cinnamon. And it turns out, guys, I've tried a lot of these. In fact, I know my favorite flavor is blueberry. It's delicious. It's like candy, but it's real ingredients. It turns out real food ingredients actually taste really good. They're gluten-free, soy-free, dairy-free. Whether you like sweet or savory, chocolate or fruit, there's definitely an RX bar for you. No artificial colors, artificial flavors, preservatives, fillers. It is real food. There's no BS with RX bars. They're great for a number of occasions. Breakfast on the go. I went on vacation. I took them for a snack in the car. You can throw them in your bag for the plane. Toss them in the backpack for a bike ride or hike. I was eating one last night, actually, while I was watching Aaron Rodgers dismantle the Bears in the fourth quarter. And here's the thing. Egg white protein stands out as a source of protein that's easy for your body to absorb. They've got 14 delicious flavors from mango pineapple to chocolate hazelnut, peanut butter chocolate, coffee chocolate, mint chocolate. They've got all kinds of stuff, including new nut butter flavors, vanilla almond butter, which I tried and is so good, honey cinnamon peanut butter. Like I said, I've tried these things and they're amazing. Real food ingredients that are going to help your body out. Your body's going to love it. And if you want to try RX Bar, it's 25% off your first order. Visit rxbar.com/fantasypros. Enter the promo code FANTASYPROS at checkout for 25% off your first order. The other guy having that range is Chris Godwin. He was kind of overshadowed by, obviously, Deshaun Jackson and Mike Evans, who also looked awesome. They scored 48 points, and Chris Godwin only had 3 receptions. But did you see his receptions? I mean, he looked like a Pro Bowler.
Chris Godwin's really good at football.
He is so good.
And so many people are going to worry about the Deshaun Jackson thing. Don't be one of them. First off, Deshaun Jackson played 20 snaps. He was not playing. He was like rotating in and out. And it's not all because of the concussion that he suffered. So he only played 20 snaps. I know he was targeted 5 times. He caught 5 passes for 146 yards and 2 touchdowns. I know that. But Chris Godwin was out there for 46 snaps while Evans was 50. So Godwin is like an every down player, essentially. And if you can get that opposite Mike Evans, who's going to draw a lot of number 1 corners, Chris Godwin's going to ball out certain weeks. So I have Godwin actually on my list very high. He is my number 3 behind John Brown. And I could see the argument for taking Godwin over Brown, but I have Godwin just 1 spot lower. I think I love the pick, but the thing is, Bobby, and you went back and you watched it. So Mike Evans played like a man out of his freaking mind. And like, he's someone like, I'm always like down to talk about guys like that I've maybe this offseason where so many people were pushing Mike Evans down, saying that he, and I was saying that he's the guy that relied so much on athletic ability. And like, he just didn't, there was like nothing special about his game. He looked special yesterday.
He's not AJ Green, man. I'm not moving him into that tier.
No, he moved the way he moved like a wide receiver. I have never seen him play. I've never seen him play at that level.
He looks like a basketball player is what he looks like.
And I don't know if it was Marshawn Lattimore and the beef that those two have between each other, but he made Marshawn Lattimore look bad. Like really, really bad.
Can I ask you this? I know you guys touched on it yesterday because I went back and I listened to the show, but if Ryan Fitzpatrick plays really well for the next few weeks, is there a chance Jameis Winston gets traded to the Jags, please?
Ooh, I mean, I doubt a team trades for him after these charges against him, because it would be made to look bad as a football franchise to do that.
I mean, Tampa already removed his image from everything.
They did?
They took him out of like commercials. They took a big picture of him outside the stadium. I mean, he's gone.
Yeah, I mean, well, I don't know if any team would trade for him, to be honest with you. But
you don't think Bill Belichick would take him and just let him sit behind Tom Brady for a year?
That wouldn't be a bad idea. I mean, they've taken on Randy Moss before, and people considered him to have character issues. And the Patriots desperately need a quarterback to back up Tom Brady. So I wouldn't put it past him, but I don't think the Bucs would just give up like that. I really don't. I think if they were going to, that they would have just released him.
I don't know, man. I mean, I would. They've already said he's not the surefire starter when he comes back.
I know. I think that's
he was
a PR
the best
move.
Quarterback in the preseason. What else do you have to do to be named the surefire starter? And then the guy comes out and he scores 5 touchdowns, puts up 48 points against the Saints. I think Super Bowl defense.
Yeah, their defense didn't look Super Bowl yesterday. They didn't look very good at all.
There was no chance I was using any Ryan Fitzpatrick in GPP, even though he goes off sometimes because the Saints defense is so good. I blew it, dude. I could have been a millionaire.
I thought there might have been some garbage time. He was also without his starting left tackle, so it didn't make much sense. But yeah, I mean, it was crazy. But yeah, no, I think it was a PR move on the Bucs' part to say that. I think they all along they planned on going back to Jameis, but if Fitzpatrick, man, Fitzmagic, if he keeps playing the way that he is, it's gonna be interesting for sure.
By the way, Dirk Cutter's not getting fired. You're wrong about that. I saw him smiling on the sideline, and I was just thinking he heard our podcast and he's listening to Tag say he's the first one getting fired, and he's just laughing at you.
Well, they took away his play calling duties, which is really good. I think some coaches need to understand that needs to happen. So Todd Monken, it was his play calling debut. They took it away from Cutter, which sometimes that needs to happen. Now it's like a new look, and maybe that's why the Saints weren't ready for it. But yeah, man, it's he's not going to get fired after that game, that's for sure.
Okay, so dude, who's your number 4? Who's your number 5? Since you've already talked about 1, 2, 3, and 6.
Yeah, so I have Benjamin Watson at number 4.
Okay, yeah, I've got him top 6 as well.
And honestly, it depends on if you need a tight end, because when you look at this matchup with the Saints and the Browns are coming into the Superdome. The over-under in this game, I was looking at it, I think it's 50 right now. I don't know if the game is going to be as high scoring as people think, just because the Browns are a much better defense than I think people give them credit for. And but Ben Watson, the reason that I want to like Watson and the reason I like Michael Thomas again is because they don't have a run game in New Orleans. Mike Gillislee fumbled. Boston Scott is not that guy. Alvin Kamara, they don't want to carry the ball a whole ton. The Browns aren't a terrible run defense, even though they looked like it against James Conner. So they're going to throw the ball again. And when you kind of look at the matchups and how much Cleveland has struggled against tight ends over the last 2 years, Ben Watson makes a whole lot of sense. And by the way, Ben Watson with the Ravens last year, he posted a couple tight end 1 games against them. So I think it was 11 games where they allowed top 12 numbers, and he was 2 of those performances without Drew Brees. So I do like Ben Watson an awful lot as a tight end streamer this week.
I'm with you on Ben Watson, and it's not like I'm planning on playing him more than 1 week or anything like that. But you know what? If you're playing the streaming game and you're willing to spend some fab bucks, this is who you go out and get. I'd spend $2 on him. If I get him, great. If not, I'll drop down and get the next guy, unless George Kittle's out there. And I'm going to remind you all, if George Kittle is out there, you need to go get him. Even if you already have a tight end, Jack Doyle or whatever, go get George Kittle. You will be able to sell him for a fortune in a couple weeks, even if you have 2 solid tight ends. Or who knows what happens. Delanie Walker's hurt. Greg Olsen comes calling. Maybe you can sell Jack Doyle or whoever your tight end is, and then just keep George Kittle because he's a starter going forward.
Yeah, he had a lot of targets. But Ben Watson, by the way, he plays obviously the Browns this week, and then he plays the Falcons the week after that. And they're going to be without Keanu Neal, their starting safety. And then Deion Jones is apparently getting his foot looked at. He's their star linebacker. So that team is falling apart. The Falcons are going to be involved in some shootouts going forward. So Ben Watson, I think he could turn out to be a multi-week streamer. And then my number 5 player is John Ross. The reason I have John Ross over Ryan Grant is because John Ross offers you like game-changing in terms of like weekly winning upside. So these are guys that you want on your bench, right? If something were to happen to AJ Green, all of a sudden John Ross is going to see 6 to 8 targets a game. He has game-breaking speed. He can run routes. And by the way, he only had 2 targets yesterday, but they were both end zone targets. So they're using him in different ways than people expected. They didn't need to take the shots down the field yesterday. So John Ross, yeah.
All right, so there's one other guy here in my top 6 that we haven't talked about. It's Phillip Lindsay. I mean, he got 17 carries, and he got work in the passing game. Like, obviously, he's not starting over Royce Freeman, but he is heavily involved. Is there a reason you don't have him in your top 5?
I actually have him at 7.
Okay, so we have the same exact top 7. Like, not same order, but same top 7.
Right, yeah, and him and Eckler were close to each other, but I decided to go Lindsay just because Royce Freeman is not the type of guy that they're going to use in the passing game. So where Eckler has to fight with Melvin Gordon for touches, but Melvin Gordon's a good receiver, whereas the Broncos obviously do not view Royce Freeman as someone they're going to use in the passing game. So Phillip Lindsay was supposed to fill that role. We thought that he was going to mix in with Devontae Booker with Royce Freeman. As it turns out, Phillip Lindsay played much more than Devontae Booker and is going to turn into the player that I think people thought Booker was going to be. So that puts him on the radar as like an RB4 most weeks, and you might be able to use him if it's like an expected high scoring game where they're going to fall behind. In PPR formats, he's probably going to be flex worthy sometimes, considering I liked him in the draft process, and I was curious to why he was falling so far. So this doesn't shock me. I think Lindsay's actually a really, really solid player. I think he's a better player than Eckler.
He's not Royce Freeman, though. I don't know why they didn't just give Royce Freeman 25 carries and Lindsay like 8.
It's questionable, but the thing is they both ran for the exact numbers. Like they both had 15 carries for 71 yards, if I'm not mistaken. So, yeah, I mean, he's definitely worth a pickup. If you need running backs behind TJ Yeldon, he'd be my first one.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really think there's a big ceiling here unless Freeman goes out. But let me ask you this. Is there any chance this is a Kirk Cousins type of situation, with RG3? They drafted RG3 a lot higher. Cousins turned out to be the really good one. Could Phillip Lindsay become their starting running back?
I don't think so. I don't think so. Like I said, when I watched him during my scouting process, like I watched his film, and like I said, I liked him as a player, but I also felt like he was more of like a third down back where he was going to be a change of pace guy. And I still feel that way about him. I know he ran well yesterday, but it was against a Seattle Seahawks front that was obviously going through some changes and missing one of their best linebackers in KJ Wright. So I don't want to take too much away from 1 week. But we'll look at Phillip Lindsay's like workload after week 2, and then we can more correctly evaluate it. I don't think his ownership is going to skyrocket through the roof. I think he'll wind up around 30% owned, because I think most leagues it's going to be tough dropping someone that they had high hopes in for someone like Lindsay.
Mm-hmm. So of the players owned, less than 40%, besides like Geronimo Allison, who's an obvious pickup, or Randall Cobb if he's out there, one of those guys. These are the only people I'd actually spend fab bucks on this week. Now, there's others that are pickup worthy. Like, there's probably half the people every single week who are picked up for free. So, Tags, let's talk about some of them, and then we'll get into some super deep sleepers, and then we'll talk about some guys who are available still in 40, 50% of leagues, and who you could pick up just to keep an eye out. So, who do you have in this next tier as your number 8 pickup?
The next tier, it's like that Austin Eckler, like that he's in that tier. Nyheim Hines is also in that conversation, because it's really weird. So, like I said, I watched that whole Bengals game, and Jordan Wilkins, they clearly wanted him to be the guy. They really did. To start that game, he was the one getting the snaps. And then as the game went on, they slowly backed away, and they started using Hines more. I know they fell behind, but it wasn't much. It was like a touchdown they were behind in that game, or 6 points. And Hines, despite him having a horrid preseason, they put him out there and they played him. I think the story to be learned here, though, is that Marlon Mack is the lead back there. Like, he's the guy that's going to get most of the snaps, and I think his value...
You could probably get him for cheap right now via trade.
Yeah, and even though he didn't even play, I think his value went up after week 1. Like, after watching what happened between those running backs, because Hines is not like a game changer. He doesn't look like he's playing at a high level. I just feel like he's just a guy. But again, if you're looking for someone in PPR formats, just like stick into a flex spot if you're in a deep league, Hines is going to gather up some receptions, because Wilkins, they didn't really use him much in that role, and we know Christine Michael's not.
I think they're both fine, but like if I put them in my flex, it's because I have an injury or a bye. I hopefully don't have any injuries right now, and buys aren't coming for a while, so I don't really want to waste a roster spot on one of these guys like Hines or like Eckler, who just doesn't have much of a ceiling. So I've got them at 13 and 22 respectively.
Wow. I mean, that's lower. And that's the thing is, like, it's fair to say that. I'm just trying to think of like the people that are out on suspensions, people that are injured, that they might need to fill a spot. That's what I was thinking, but it really does depend. And I think a lot of these waiver wire pickups, it really depends on the makeup of your team, because if you're looking for someone who could potentially be a game changer and become an every week starter, you might want to look at like a little bit lower down the list.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I don't really know if there are any of those guys out there unless it's like an injury situation, right? The one guy that is intriguing to me in that sense, and I've got him really low, is Eric Ebron. And I was going to say tight end for the Indianapolis Colts, but he's not really a tight end anymore. He's a wide receiver.
The thing is like with him, he's someone that I would sell high on if you could. Like, let's say if you bought him and people are willing to pay you for him, I would, because I was looking at that game not long ago and breaking down the snap counts, and I didn't see Ebron on the field a whole lot. And I want to say he played 32 of 76 snaps and or 79 snaps. So he was only on the field for like 40% of the snaps. That's not going to get it done. He saw 5 targets, and that's what people are going to cling to. But understand that Andrew Luck threw the ball 53 times. So he saw like a 9% target share, which is not great. Like basically, if he doesn't score a touchdown, he's going to let you down.
Yeah, that's a third of Charles Clay from last year.
Yeah, exactly, and that's all I'm saying is I think Ebron's going to have weeks where he's definitely viable. It's just don't rely on last week as the telling performance, because the Bengals, first off, were a team that was bad against tight ends last year, and on top of that, they were without Vontaze Burfict.
All right, so anybody else to you that stands out here? I mean, obviously we need to talk about guys like Dante Pettis, Phillip Dorsett, Ted Ginn, Deshaun Jackson. Are you spending more than $1 on any of those four?
I mean, Brandon Marshall's actually ahead of those guys for me. I mean, the thing is like I wanted to see how the snap count shaked out between him and Jerron Brown, and Brandon Marshall outsnapped him. And on top of that, Brandon Marshall scored a touchdown, and Brandon Marshall should have had 2 touchdowns, but they called, I think it was pass interference on the one. So he was targeted a couple times in the end zone. So obviously,
and Doug Baldwin's out, and Russell Wilson's amazing.
And I don't think Tyler Lockett's anything special. So basically, Brandon Marshall, I think, is worth an ad. And like if you're playing a matchup like this week, they're playing against the Bears. And that's going to be the Monday night game. I think Brandon Marshall is probably going to wind up in my top 40 wide receiver plays this week. So if you need a wide receiver for this week, I think that, like, because he's going to match up, like we saw Kyle Fuller last night. He's nothing special. Prince Amukamara, again, he's a fine cornerback, but he's nothing special. Brandon Marshall, obviously, he's playing with an elite quarterback right now, and that's something he hasn't done in quite a little while. So maybe Marshall hasn't been bad. Maybe the quarterbacks he's been playing with have just not put him in great positions. And Russell Wilson needs to throw touchdowns to someone.
Well, what about Phillip Dorsett and Ted Ginn, though, man? I mean, they're both obviously starting for 2 of the best offenses in football. Phillip Dorsett had 7 receptions.
Well, here's the thing. You're going to drop Phillip Dorsett after this week then, because if you pick him up, they're playing the Jags. You're not playing him. So if you own Phillip Dorsett and someone wants to buy, sell. Do that, because his value is going to drop after this week, because he's a perimeter wide receiver who's going to match up with A.J. Boye for the majority of the game.
Yeah. And Ted Ginn's like Deshaun Jackson. I never want to start him. Sure, the final line's going to be okay at the end of the season, but that's with like 3 or 4 good games, and he kills you 12 weeks if you actually play him, and he's never going to be one of your top 5 wide receivers unless you've got injuries, and if that's the case, just wait and stream that week. Ted Ginn's still probably going to be there.
Yeah, pretty much. Like, he's a guy that people are going to drop and pick up. I think he's a bye week guy where it's like if you can project a game where the Saints are going to pass a whole lot, I think Ginn's playable. This week, it's not one of those ones I'd want to play him. That's why I have Marshall ahead of him.
Okay. All right. The one player we haven't mentioned yet that I've got ahead of all these wide receivers is Jonnu Smith, and he's because he's replacing Delanie Walker. This is an offense for tight ends. Delanie Walker is not like some exceptional talent. He just gets a lot of opportunity, and he scores in the red zone. Jonnu Smith is going to do the same thing. I'm not saying he's someone that you start every single week, but he's got some big-time upside. I love the athleticism, and I'm going to pick him up just kind of as a lottery ticket and see what happens.
Yeah, I mean, I have no issue picking him up as a lottery ticket, but again, if I'm not starting him, if I'm not streaming him, then I don't have a backup tight end. Like, I have Jordan Reed in multiple leagues, and I don't even have a backup for him, so it's not going to change or anything like that. Like, if something happens to Reed, I'll obviously cross that bridge when I get there. And if you have a really deep roster, I mean, you could just grab Vernon Davis and just handcuff there. But
I'd rather have Ricky Seals-Jones than Smith. I think Seals-Jones, I don't know if you noticed, but he got targeted quite a bit, including in the red zone. And this is a special athlete. You want to talk about Jonnu Smith being an athlete? Ricky Seals-Jones is twice the athlete, and he has really no competition for targets besides Fitzgerald.
Yeah, that Cardinals offense looked so bad.
It's horrible, man.
So bad.
What happened to Sam Bradford? He's worse than Blake Bortles.
Well, I think he's just playing behind a bad offensive line, and you saw what happened. And there's not the offensive coordinator situation there. I don't like, and I didn't like it all along. It's why I was worried about David Johnson. The talent is there, and I've said it over and over that David Johnson is a great talent. He just plays in a very bad offense. Like, David Johnson could be so good, but yeah, it's going to be tough for him in negative game scripts if that defense can't get it together. I thought the defense was going to at least play well this week against Washington. That didn't even happen in Arizona, so it's tough, man. I just don't want any part of that offense right now. I mean, I'll take DJ, of course, but Seals-Jones, again, once you get outside the top like 10 tight ends, and honestly, that list might be down to like 8 tight ends now with the injuries that we have to Olsen and Delanie Walker, I'm streaming, and I'm not going to grab any of these guys and just ride them out. I'm not going to do that.
Yep, I think that's fair, man. Who else do you want to talk about, Tags?
One player that I'd like to bring up, just as like, let's say that you're searching for you play in a deep league. Like I play in a few leagues where we start 3 wide receivers and 3 flex spots. So if you're in a league like that where you're deeper, I think Cole Beasley should be someone that's on your radar. I actually, in the primer last week, I said, I'm going to hate saying this, but Cole Beasley is like, you can look at him as a streamer this week, like last week. And obviously that worked out because Dallas went against Carolina. He caught 7 passes for 73 yards on 8 targets. This goes back to like Cole Beasley with Dak Prescott without Des Bryant on the field. It's the only person that he essentially has any rapport with. The wide receivers, Allen Hurns and Deontay Thompson, they're just guys. Whereas Cole Beasley at least can get some separation underneath. And then this week they're going against the Giants, who have B.W. Webb in the slot. He's never been a good cornerback. So if you're looking for some production in a PPR format, I think Cole Beasley is like a wide receiver 4 in my rankings this week.
Wow. Okay. That's interesting, man. I mean, it kind of makes sense. I'm going to rattle off a few names for deeper leagues, and we're not really going to dive into them. D.D. Westbrook, he had 5 receptions for 51. He's playing a lot for Jacksonville because Marquise Lee is out. He's available in 85% of leagues. Jameis Winston, I think he's coming back soon. And I think he's probably going to play. This offense has so many weapons, and Jameis Winston, like I said, was the best quarterback in the preseason, so I want some shares of Winston. Geronimo Allison, I don't know actually why he wasn't on our list tags, but he's available in 88% of leagues, and he's the best pickup. I'd rather have him than TJ Yeldon. I hope you all have him already anyway. And then what do you think about someone like Quincy Enunwa? I mean, obviously we don't quite know yet, but is he someone who should be on our radar? Like, let's say he goes out tonight, and he gets 5 receptions for 60 and a touchdown. Do you want to pick him up?
Yeah, I would, because we're going to see Sam Darnold's first career start, and we're going to start to learn the players that he favors, because every quarterback has an area of the field they typically target. Like Andrew Luck, we've learned no matter what, he's always targeted tight ends. That's just the way that he's played the game. He'll take shots deep, but there's, like I said, there's certain quarterbacks where they have tendencies to their game, and if Sam Darnold starts targeting Quincy Enunwa because that's who he favors, that's who he's built a connection with, it's very possible. And especially considering they don't have a great offensive line, he might need to get the ball out quick. I figure Enunwa is going to play the slot more than he is in the perimeter, so yeah, he's someone to definitely keep an eye on the games tonight. Obviously, you guys are listening in the morning, so you may have already watched that game. But if he did, he's definitely worth consideration off the waiver wire. But yeah, it's weird to think that Geronimo Allison's not on this list because we try and put players who are under 40% owned, and he's definitely in that territory. But
maybe it was just too obvious. Who knows, man?
I mean, maybe. But there's gonna be people who ask about it. But if you've listened this offseason, you know Allison would have already been on your roster because we were drafting him much earlier than that. I don't think I'd pick him up over Yeldon just because I think Yeldon it's harder to find that running back, but I would definitely take Geronimo Allison.
It's close, yeah.
Yeah, right in that John Brown territory, though.
Also doesn't mean you need to spend 20 FAAB bucks on him since he's close to Yeldon, because he's available in 88% of leagues, and there's a reason why. Like, you can probably spend $5 and you'll have no problem getting him. Guys available in 50% of leagues just to take a look at, just in case they're available. Ronald Jones, don't pick him up. You can drop him. DJ Moore, he's like the 4th or 5th wide receiver in the depth chart.
He played 16 snaps. Yeah, he's droppable.
But a couple guys worth picking up here. Marlon Mack is available in 49% of leagues tags.
Wow. Yeah, he's definitely someone that I would grab.
Keelan Cole still available in 45% of leagues.
Yeah, Keelan Cole, he had a tough matchup with Janoris Jenkins. That's why I wasn't like a huge Keelan Cole guy last week. But yeah, he's definitely, I still think he's going to be the number 1 receiver, and he actually looked pretty solid. It's just Janoris Jenkins is a really good cornerback.
2 running backs here, Matt Breida, Bilal Powell, who are both starters. They're available in over 40% of leagues. Kelvin Benjamin had a rough game against Baltimore. Everyone in Buffalo did.
Well, I mean, the Bills' offense is going to have rough games every time.
Josh Allen looked pretty good, man. His footwork was awesome. His eyes were up the field as he was getting pressure on him. He's got a cannon for an arm. He actually has looked pretty accurate in the preseason. I've come around on Josh Allen a little bit, and Kelvin Benjamin is his obvious number 1. He's worth owning, folks. I think so, at least.
He's worth owning for sure, but I
wouldn't rush to pick him up. I'd rather have Keelan Cole, but
he's like a dollar guy.
Yeah, and I'd rather have Mike Williams, who's owned in just 60% of leagues. Pick him up before it's too late. Final guy I want to mention is Aaron Jones. Aaron Jones is coming back soon, and I know Jamal Williams looked fine last night. He looked good, and
Pass protection looked good.
Pass protection, really good. In fact, he helped them win that game with that huge block on, I don't remember what it was, on...
May have been Roquan. I don't remember who it was either.
Yeah, it was a blitz where they had a huge passing play, and it wouldn't have happened if Jamal Williams wasn't pass blocking there. But Aaron Jones is a good pickup regardless because he's a lottery ticket.
Yeah, for absolutely. Yep.
All right, man, that's all for today's show, unless there was anyone else you want to talk about.
Whew. No, I mean, we should probably mention, if you're looking for a streaming quarterback, I don't know if you had anybody on your list. I think Tyrod Taylor is someone you should consider playing in New Orleans. I don't think he's going to blow up or anything, but he is someone that presents a very high floor. You don't have to worry about the elements of outside.
I'm not picking on New Orleans, man. I'm not ready to play that game.
I'm saying Tyrod Taylor's always, he can always deliver those streaming numbers, and... So that's, I just wanted to mention him to at least tell you. And I think Eli Manning should be someone you should consider for streaming this upcoming week. And I mean, we might talk about these guys in the DFS show, but don't judge Eli Manning in this offense on what you've seen against Jacksonville, because nobody does good against Jacksonville.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, Manning's fine. Tyrod Taylor's fine. If I'm streaming someone, though, I'm picking up Nick Foles against Tampa.
Ew.
Tampa just gave up 40 points, man.
No, Nick Foles has sucked over the last few weeks that we've seen him. He has not looked good, and the only reason that...
Wait. 2 weeks ago, he was in the Super Bowl putting up 400 yards.
No. That was not 2 weeks ago. We watched him in the preseason, and we watched him in week 1.
Oh, okay. The preseason doesn't count.
I don't think anybody feels comfortable starting Nick Foles this week is what I'm saying.
I feel comfortable starting Nick Foles this week. I'm fine with that.
Over Eli Manning?
Over Eli Manning, yeah. I'll do that.
Oh, dude, we might need to come up with some side bet for this.
Okay. Yeah, we can talk about that.
We'll figure that out through the week.
Any DSTs? I should have mentioned this. Any DSTs that you're streaming?
It's actually a really bad week to stream defenses, but I think the Tennessee Titans are one that you can consider for this week.
Agree. That's why I have two.
Yeah, that's where I would go this week.
All right, man. Well, that's all for today's show. Tags, this was a lot of fun, and I'm looking forward to not screwing up on FanDuel next week, and make sure you check out their Sunday Million. Also, buy yourself some RX bars. Real food tastes good. Visit rxbar.com/fantasypros. Enter the promo code FANTASYPROS at checkout for 25% off your first order. And while you're at it, take a look at NFL Game Pass, where they've got a 7-day free trial going on for you. Go to nfl.com/fantasypros. For Mike Tagliere, I'm Bobby Sylvester. Thanks for listening, and enjoy your football.
I just wanted you to watch me dissolve.